every breath that I breathe, I will praise you. With every song that I sing, Holy Ghost, I will praise you.
And they say, well, they passed me over for the promotion. Well, did you tell them you were interested in the promotion? Sometimes you got to open your mouth and say something. Sometimes we want the grades, but are we studying?
My God.
Are we doing the homework? Are we being faithful? Sometimes we want a promotion in ministry, but are we faithful where we are? Do we attend church regularly? Do we work in the ministry? How are we with the relationships with people in ministry? But you want a title, you want a position, but we don't even see you but once a week?
Come on. Say it.
Okay.
I'll feel it, Pastor.
Sometimes we want the blessings of God, but we don't want to do our part. We want God to do all. Sometimes we can be some lazy Christians. We want God to do everything. We want him to bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, put it on a plate, bring it to us and feed us. But God is saying, you got to do your part. And sometimes what happens is that we get discouraged because a lot of what we do as our part is without the benefit of immediate results. A lot of times we pray for a week and nothing happens, so we stop praying. Didn't nothing happen. I fasted until 12 when I got hungry, and nothing happened, so I'm not fasting no more. I paid my tithes that one time, and nothing happened, so I didn't pay them anymore. Sometimes we have to realize that the strength of our commitment is being tested. Sometimes what God has for us lies in being able to be consistent in what God is calling us to do, whether we see the results right then or not. But God is saying, I can't move until you move. I've done what I said I was going to do. Now it's your turn. Now it's time for you to fulfill the commitment. I can't release what I have, and God has so many blessings, but God said, I can't release what I have until I know that you're going to be obedient with what I ask you to do. Just like in Deuteronomy 28, it says that if you obey and hearken, then all these blessings will overtake you. But everything that God promises us is tied to our obedience. Every promise that God has is tied to us being obedient and tied to us doing what he's called us to do. So sometimes we look at others and say, well, why is God blessing them and he doesn't bless me like that? I want to encourage you to get away from that kind of thinking, because 10 years later, that person will be gone on experiencing the blessings of God, and you'll still be right here wondering, God, why not me?
Thinking.
First of all, there has to be an obedience. Turn to Deuteronomy 28 real quick. I'm almost done.
My God.
All looking like me like I'm pulling teeth.
My God.
But that's all right. Because we have to do our part. We have to do our part. There's no way around it. We have to do our part.
Jesus.
Have to do our part. 28:1 says, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and observe and do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee high above all the nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of thy Lord. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high. Somebody said, go back to the what? He will set thee on high. He will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come in on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. And I want to encourage you to read the rest of that when you go home, because it talks about all of the blessings. But don't skip over the first 2 verses, because the rest of it doesn't happen if you don't hearken unto the voice of the Lord. And then you have to be willing to cooperate. God has never done anything after the original creation of man without man's input. Did you know that? If you find a place in the Bible that God does something without man's input, let me know. Not a place in the Bible. When the Holy Ghost came into the upper room, he said that when they were on one accord and in one place, something that man had to do something for God to come in. When Jesus fed the 5,000, what did he have to do? He had to have somebody's fish and the 5 loaves of bread, and then he blessed it. And then he could feed the 5,000. Every time there was a healing in the Bible, it came as a result of somebody's human action. When the glory of God came and filled the temple, it was because they were in the temple and they were praying and singing praises to God and saying, Lord, you are good, for your mercy endureth forever. And then the glory of the Lord came into the house, and even the cloud of God, so that the ministers could not minister by reason of the cloud, but that was preceded by somebody going in praying.